Thank you, and welcome to Kast. I'll be your host, Kalis, and I also have my co-host here, Boojum.
Good to be here.
Today is February 22nd, 2944. We have a great deal of exciting information to discuss today. Today on our roundtable, we have Laser Angel.
I never left.
Bill the Turnup.
Hello.
Katra Kel.
Confirmed for Goonspy.
Let's talk Hype Citizen. Now we have all these stretch goals, some of them been completed from the last episode, and some of them are in progress. Real quickly, the 38 million one is now finished, and that's the fully aquatic planet. It's kind of boring by most of our standards, but maybe it'll be interesting. I don't know. We'll have to see. Next, we have the 39 million goal that was completed. That was the Unexplored Natural Wonder, the system with the trinary stars. Once again, that would probably be cool to watch or take screenshots in, and maybe you'll get some exploration badge or something. Next, we have the 40 million goal, which is currently in progress. It's the Dual System. It's the one for the Tevarin Ghost World and the Lost Human Colony. Now, they were rated so highly that CIG decided to put both of them in for the next goal. And I think they're pretty interesting. The Ghost World is really cool. It sounds like there's ominous undertones, like a secret underground resistance of Tevarin against the UEE.
If I recall, the specific teaser was that they found abandoned encampments that were fairly recent, like within a decade.
Yeah, the technology was made very recently, even though the Tevarin really have no society or anything of their own. They have no planets, I should say. And the other system, the Oretani System, is the Lost Human Colony. So it'll be interesting once the UE hooks up with them and decide whether or not they're part of the UE anymore, or they're going to go to war and try to absorb them. Laser Angel?
What I found interesting about the Oretani system is that they talked about the jump point collapsing, and I'm just sort of wondering if that's possible in the persistent universe. Not that per se all jump points would collapse, but that it might have to be remapped later on, or it would alter the connections, the little nodes between the systems, and make some systems more valuable depending on what happened to the jump nodes, or just actually how common an occurrence it is.
That's going to actually be kind of a bitch if it does happen, because you're going to have to basically remap the galaxy, because certain jump points, we know that some systems have multiple jump points, so you might have to find a ways around other systems like core systems or anything else. So if
there have
they
been some sorry about that. There have been some interesting ideas floating around in the forum for a while now about jump points that are either variable in their accessibility, or jump points entirely coming and going, new ones, that kind of thing. So I haven't heard much in the way of dev confirmations of how that might work out, but this at least shows that the idea of them changing once in a while is on the table.
There was something that I heard a while ago. It was from Chris Roberts. I think it was back during the Kickstarter, where they said that they would eventually be opening jump points to new systems. They would just open it, and then if you found it, you found the new system.
Yeah, as they would dump new systems into the galaxy or whatever, as they develop them, they'll probably just add more jump points. They won't just throw them out there automatically. They'll probably be waiting. It also depends on how quickly the community basically explores the galaxy too. But that also brings the question, are you going to have to retread old ground once new systems are in play? So I don't know. It'll be pretty cool either way for explorers. Bill?
I do think it might be a good idea to have kind of that dynamic universe, especially with the jump points, just because I know when I was playing Freelancer, it gets kind of boring when it's just static like that, and it'd be interesting to see, I can't get to here, how am I going to get to there now?
Well, we do know that the world is going to be ever changing, and they're going to be constantly adding content. So that's pretty crazy, actually. Because just for shits and giggles, they might just cut off all access to Terra, for example. No, they might not do that, or at least it would be like a huge event or something. Laser?
I don't think they would necessarily cut off a system entirely. I think it'll be more sort of like a construction detour where, I have to jump to this next system over and I might have to encounter something else over there instead of going my normal route.
A Vanduul detour? Sorry, you have to go right through the middle of Vanduul space to get to Earth from Terra now. Good luck. Alright, we also have the next award, the next stretch goal. That would be the $41 million one. And that is, I think, one of the most exciting and interesting ones we've had thus far. What's going to happen is Chris Roberts has a lot of requests for atmospheric combat as well as ground combat. But the level of detail that he's wanting to put into it is not going to be possible to hand do this. He said, his quote is saying it would take a lifetime. So he is going to allocate funding for Cloud Imperium Games to develop procedural generation technology for the future of Star Citizen. And he's going to have this special team just do nothing else but work on the procedural generation stuff. And while it is a long bid, it is definitely a very exciting technology because that means we'll get FPS ground combat that'll probably include like gladiators actually doing bombing runs and tanks and other types of equipment. Possibly, we can always pray Mechs, but we'll have to see on that. Either way, I think this is probably one of the best stretch goals we've ever had.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is really some interesting stuff. And it's being phrased exactly the right way, too. He's not saying, oh, hey, we're going to include procedural content at launch, because that's just a little ridiculous. What he's saying is even more exciting, I think. He's saying he's going to invest in serious R&D in making procedural generation work better, and actually trying to improve the state of the art. And I think he's finally got the money to do that, and he's commented on that before. So it's going to be really interesting to see how well they can make procedural content, both itself be rich and varied, but then mesh with handcrafted content.
One interesting thing about that money is we found recently, I think at a conference or something, Chris Roberts was talking about, and he stated that every dollar you invest into Star Citizen is worth $4 for like a regular company because of the realities of not having a publisher and doing it his own way. So he technically has a lot more money than just 41 million because he can make that money stretch and go places that either a publisher wouldn't go or wouldn't let him go. Bill?
I was kind of surprised that they actually put this at 41 million and not at 40 million, just because of how the numbers go. But in that 41 million or the 39 million update, he did say that 42 million was probably going to be a bit of a bigger one, mainly just because of the fact that the game is being called Squadron 42. So 42 million is going to be a relevant number.
Well, yeah. I mean, 42 and all. That's going to be their big thing, and it's probably going to be a massive... I assume that's going to be one where they're going to give the backers something. Because they haven't done that for a while, and I think they'll want to reward people and all that. So, that's all we have for the stretch goals. And now, we got Boojum on the subscriber reward updates.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some neat stuff going on there. I don't know how many people have been following what the whole subscriber deal is. As a quick primer, back early in the crowdfunding campaign, there were people who wanted to throw more money at CIG and were asking for ways to do it. And so they just came up with the subscriber system. It's not in-game subscription like you see other places. It's more like you give extra money to Cloud Imperium Games and you get various little perks and cosmetics and some access to some concept art that's in special vaults. But now they've also expanded this to stuff for people that have been subscribed for more than a year. There's two subscription levels, Centurion and Imperator. They're different prices. But I think one of the more interesting things being included in the new perks and rewards are these pilot licenses, these access badges. There's various types of one: test pilot, Vanduul test pilot, advanced test pilot. What they do is that they will give people who have been subscribed at the right tier or for the right amount of time temporary access to ships that they don't actually own. And so they'll get to get a little bit more mileage out of the dogfighting section of development.
One of the things I liked about it is they actually detailed what you're getting. Before, I feel it was like a bit of a mystery what subscribers get. Because I asked a couple of different subscribers, what do you think you're getting? And they're like, well, we know we might be getting the jump point hard copies. Like, they promised that vaguely, but they didn't really explain what, how much it's going to cost or what you're going to get for it. Now they actually have it nailed down. And it'll probably change. And I'm actually curious how long the subscriber program is going to, exist. Is it going to go all the way into the game? Because that may have unforeseen consequences.
Yeah, I think things get strange or even a little problematic if this subscription system extends beyond release. But that's, a bridge we'll cross when we get there. In the meantime, there's quite a few other interesting things going on with the subscriptions. Access to some merchandise like patches, and they'll be throwing decorative hanger items at subscribers every 2 months. And if you're at the Imperator level, you get 2 of the item instead of 1. Now, these aren't exclusive. They'll be in the game and everything, and you won't have to pay cash to get them. But it looks like they may be temporarily exclusive as far as who has them or who shows them off early on for release here. And then there's also the website beta access program for the new website launch and for the organization launch. There were beta programs, and they look like they're going to be restricting that to subscribers now. It's what it seems, because it's one of the listed perks here, is that you get to join this team of people that are going to beta test updates to various services they're rolling out.
Yeah, the next one, it looks like they're going to beta test is going to be the Galactopedia. And that's going to be a really cool one, how it actually works, Since it's supposed to be like a living chronicle of the galaxy. So, and things are only going to be uncovered as they're found. I'm really interested to see how they're going to implement that in game, because everything's tied into the game from the website.
Well, the subscriptions in general are shaping up to be, I think, quite a lot of revenue for them. I don't know exactly how many subscribers there are, but with how much it costs and how much it seems like there are people that are subscribed, judging from the subscriber forum activity, they're probably bringing in quite a bit of extra revenue, which is great for the game. I mean, they can put this to good use.
Like we said before, we wonder if that's actually counting towards the full amount, which it probably is. It's got to be, because they make $50,000 a day on average. All right. So next up, we have the Vanduul ship concept art. That was in a recent transmission, mixed with other things, but it is, I think, really cool, because we see pretty much all the Vanduul ships, not just profiles, but we actually have a little bit of detail in here. Now, they're not high detail or anything, but one of the most noticeable parts is the King ship, and that's the large carrier flagship for the Vanduul, and it's 1,500 meters long, which is another 500 meters past the proposed Bengal carriers. So it's bigger than anything that the UE currently puts out, although there is some speculation that there might be a bigger ship, maybe a flagship of some sort. So we also have the Idris in there as a comparison, although it does say that it's 240 meters, which is not congruent with the sizes they gave us before.
And given the in-progress redesign of the Idris, it's a little uncertain whether they've made a mistake with constructing this image, or if this is just really the new size of the Idris if it's grown that much under redesign. At any rate, it's shown consistently in the image. Both, its apparent size and the stated number is 240 meters, and that doesn't seem out of place, but it is certainly much larger than what we've been given before.
Almost, well, yeah, 100 meters. That's quite a bit of growing,
Yeah, not a
even
small
in
tree.
modeling. Maybe they just found that the hangar itself for the Idris had to be bigger than the stated numbers. Maybe they were just barely squeezing it in before, and that ain't gonna work. Because we always have that old concept of the interior of the hangar, and it was so tiny that the Hornet's wings were almost scraping the side. Laser?
Yeah, I know we've been discussing that it's about twice the size, the Idris, and that from the slightly updated concept art we got maybe a month or two ago now, that it had at least gotten maybe 50% wider. So that you're right, you're no longer scraping off the paint from on your wingtips.
Yeah, that was like the super scary landing sequence where you're just tearing off the wings 80% of the time because seriously, it was so close to the wings. It was like, how are you gonna land that without any kind of assistance? One thing I like to note of this, the Void's torpedo bomber from the Vanduul is an incredibly large ship. It's about the size of a Starfare, and that's a pretty big ship, and it's just a torpedo bomber, so the amount of armament it's probably carrying is just terrifying. One other thing of note, they don't appear to have a battleship of any sort. They're kind of going like the UE, what it looks like. Their biggest ship right now appears to be the cruiser, besides the flagship, of course, as far as the combat ship goes. Bill.
They also have that destroyer, which I took a look at it at the image originally, and it doesn't look like it's in the same kind of aspect as the other ones, but I still did really like how that one looks.
Yeah, everybody seems to like the dark and edgy Hunter Destroyer with all the spikes. It looks odd, but like I said, this is really low detail paint, concept. So we'll have to see.
Besides sorry, I'm stepping on you again.
No,
besides the
it's all right.
aesthetic design here, there are some interesting, I think, design implications for the mechanics of how the Vanduul do things. One of their largest ships is devoted to carrying these harvesters, and in the lore, they've been described as being used pretty offensively. These things will just eat battlefields and turn them into more ships and machines.
That's really terrifying if you think about it. Like, they just come in and just harvest up, and all of a sudden they're stronger than when they came in, even if they lost stuff. Laser?
It sounds like they're sort of like the harvester beams from Homeworld, where you just sort of gather natural resources and immediately convert them in the inverse operation that these harvesting beams did into ships once more.
Another thing to note, they have a comm ship that's pretty big. I'm assuming it's going to be like an ECM kind of AWACS-ish kind of a ship. But it's kind of, I don't know, it seems kind of incongruent with the rest of their style of ships. But we do also have the medium, the light, and the heavy fighter. The light being the Scythe, because it's itty bitty at 29 meters. But they also have the medium and the heavy, as well as a little boarding ship. So a little shuttlecraft that has some board. All right. Well, next up we have Boojum talking about the destroyer that was introduced in the 39 million update.
So we did just get this round of concept art on the Javelinclass destroyer. Now, we saw a shot of that previously in the Wingman's Hangar update of what Foundry 42 was working on, but no one knew exactly what it was. We knew it didn't match the Idris, and it was still capital size, so some of us had guessed it right. I think, Kalis, you actually had guessed it was a destroyer. At any rate, it looks like it's coming along pretty well. This thing is definitely armed. It's got quite a few turrets on it. And one of the more interesting details they've given about its design is that it's supposed to be modular, as in customizable. You can swap out whole chunks of this ship to specialize in different roles. In some of the art, we've seen what looks like the ability to swap out a lot of the turrets on the sides for more storage, and they describe assault destroyer and LRR destroyer roles. And there's even a hangar pad that has also been a little bit confusing because it's hard to tell whether that thing is external or whether it leads into the interior of the ship for a hangar. In some art, it looks like it's a landing pad that's just purely external. Other places, it's labeled as hangar doors. So there's some interesting development that looks like it's still going on, but I like how it's shaping up.
Yeah, I'm really keen on it too. I like the design. The front end looks really good, and one thing, it's a lot larger than the Idris, like incredibly.
Oh,
It's
definitely, yeah.
probably about 2 to 3 times wider, and it's a lot longer. And the only way to determine its size, I think somebody was speculating it was like 300-ish meters because the gladiator's in one of the concept pictures, and you can extrapolate from there based on the sizes of the gladiator. Although the gladiator specs we have on the ship specs are confirmed wrong, so we're not sure about that. Laser.
The first picture I saw of it on the 39 million post was the engines, and I'm like, this is the Battlestar Galactica. And then after that, I was just as shocked to see that it's also capable of atmospheric and landing. So it's it has VTOL, and you can land this on the surface of a planet. So I thought it would be limited to the Idris. And I know there were some hints that the destroyer would be capable of doing so, but then I see the engines rotated, and it's on a couple of pictures where it has landing struts out, and it's on the ground.
Yeah, the engine's much like Retaliator, and the Idris, of course, can spin down, and it looks like it can definitely land in atmosphere, because one of the paintovers is of it in an atmospheric, well, a planet with an atmosphere. You can see the sky in the background.
There's been a lot of historical waffling over exactly where various game mechanics limits will be in the classes of ships as you go higher. As we mentioned, there's the mechanic of whether or not it can land on planets. There's also the issue of whether or not a ship is able to log out, or whether it's a permanent fixture in the universe. We know the Bengal can't log out or dock safely. It's just always sitting in space. And we don't know exactly where that line is going to be drawn on the capital ships either. But it looks like the destroyer is firmly in the prior category. If it can go down to planets, it can land, it can log out, and it's much like the Idris in that regard, just performing a different role and being bigger. Bill.
One of the things about the destroyer, maybe not everybody is aware, it should be the largest ship that a civilian can buy, or a citizen rather, because it was one of the stretch goals, and they waffled back and forth between the Idris and the destroyer as being the largest ship, but it's obviously the Javelin class destroyer, which is going to be the bigger ship. But it is supposed to be purchasable, whether in game or a pledge, I don't know. I mean, what are they going to charge, $2,000 for it?
Right. I mean, beyond the Idris, it really just does get to the levels where I don't think it's even worth trying to sell it for money. Bill.
Yeah, looking at the Vanduul ships as well, it kind of looks like the destroyer might be able to land, but then like the harvester carrier, the cruiser, and the flagship are the only ones that really look like they don't have anything designed for landing. So maybe that's where the limit is right after the destroyer, you know, at that around that 300-meter mark.
Either way,
it'll be interesting to see what implications that has for various types of gameplay. Because whether or not a Vanduul ship can get to you where you are on the surface of a planet might end up being very important.
Either way, it should be interesting no matter what happens, because big ships, I think everybody likes big ships. I mean, dogfighting is fun, but when it's fun to dogfight around big ships that are shooting back and forth. So next up, we have the Next Great Starship. Quick update on Episode 4. There wasn't a lot of interaction with the teams and such. There was a brief spot at the beginning where they did a meet the teams, and they showed off a little bit of the concept art. Most people didn't have anything that was ready to show, but it was interesting to see how they all reacted and stuff. I liked it, and I think they need to show the people. People just want to see the ships. And that's understandable. Next, what we saw though was they showed off the team for the wild card, and it was the Infinite Shui Monkey, and I think they deserved it. I voted for them myself because I really like the effort they put into their design, as well as their explanation of their design. I really appreciated that.
I was kind of surprised by how lopsided the vote really was. If I recall, they got something around half of all the votes.
And it happened really fast. I think some of it had to do with the fact that episode 3 was the last one and it was the freshest in people's mind. I think that does affect things. But, we'll have to see what happens. Now, one thing I wanted to point out, the deadline for when the ships have to be finished is in June. Their specifications were provided to them on February 4th. So they only have 4 months to build these ships. They need to they need a concept them out. They're going to need to model them, texture them, animate them. That's a lot of work, and I'm really wondering how some of these one-man teams are going to do it without killing themselves. But it looks like that guy in New York who did the spinning one. I cannot remember his team name, but he did the spinning gun that was based off of the Sakura flower. It was in the first episode. I really liked that gun. He already had a lot of concept that he had already been building that he showed off, so he's just going to have to work himself to death, I guess. Also, in that episode, the part that we were all interested in was they showed off finally the Consolidated Outlands Mustang, the work in progress art. It was designed by David Hobbins, who also did the Gladiator and the aforementioned Javelinclass destroyer. And it's a small craft. It's supposed to be another starter craft. Almost on par with the Aurora. It has some differences, however. It's fast. It's supposed to be kind of flimsy. It has 2 class turrets on the front, which is kind of powerful, it seems like, for a starter ship, because they can swivel, so you don't have to spin your craft or anything. That gives you some advantages that an Aurora would never have, although it does not have any missiles. And that could be a real bad thing. Laser?
I know people say it looks flimsy, but even from the pictures and the sort of design lore, it doesn't look really that flimsy at all to me. It looks like it's on par with the Aurora itself. But yeah, the sort of sleekness, the engines, and the profile really add to a feeling that this is designed to go fast. And I'm really thinking about replacing my Aurora LX with one of these. And as we've seen before in the Anything FPS, put up a video of the Hornet, and it's surprising how much traverse those class 2 emplacements really, those class 2 weapon mounts really get. So if you're in front of this, it's not going to be a fun day.
But not having any missiles, man, I mean, that means I don't know, missiles can end a battle real fast, or at least take out some serious important systems. We'll just have to see. We don't know much about how missiles work because we haven't seen anything in actual flight or usage yet. Hopefully they'll be in the dogfighting alpha when it's released. So next we also have the in the Wingman's Hangar this last week we had the CIG Studio report for Foundry 42, and there was a really cool video, and in it they showed the Shubin mining station. Now they stated this thing is 6 kilometers long. It's a set piece. It's massive, and it's got a lot of detail in it, even on an early build. We also learned that we're going to have the first 10 missions for Squadron 42 most likely take place on it. They didn't give any details, so we're kind of extrapolating, but that's a pretty cool starting zone. The atmosphere and the way everything looks, I really enjoy it. I think it's pretty cool. We also have they showed off the Idris missile loading animations. How exactly they're going to load it in, how people are going to sit there and operate it and push it up and load it into the launcher up top. The Javelin in some of the concept art actually has 2 of those things, so I guess it'll probably have much the same setup. And finally, we saw the mining robots. They're quad mechs, basically. And they're big. They're really big. And they have giant chainsaws on them, along with it looks like each leg has a chainsaw of some sort. And we're apparently supposed to be able to purchase them, and but they're going to be very expensive. So probably only the larger mining syndicates and organizations are going to be able to own them.
There's so many things about this update that have been exciting. But one interesting trend that I wanted to point out as well is how everything that they've talked about has ballooned in size as they developed it. The mining station, the quad mech mining robot, all of these things ended up much larger than the initial concepts.
Yeah, every time they model, the ships always get bigger, except for the 300i. It's the only ship that kind of got smaller from the concept. Everything else, once they model it out, they've realized they need more space, so they just hammer it out and boom, more space. I assume it's just because they didn't know exactly what they needed. They hadn't had everything set in stone, early on. They were still learning because nobody had really done this before. Bill?
That's one of the things I really do like is the scale of these things. Like the 6 kilometer long space station, like that's going to be something to just fly around and just be amazed at how much work goes into this.
Yeah, they were stating in the video you can fly around and just watch how it processes ore and stuff. Like, you're actually going to see that detail. It's not just going to be, blank panels and stuff, not doing anything. They want to show you the station mining and, bringing in ore and smelting it. And I love that level of detail.
I think this mirrors one of the common concerns is that something that is supposed to be big might end up looking small in the final game. The usual topic is planets. But if this is what happens to their mining stations, I'm not especially worried.
Yeah, it is a worry that you're going to have these 20-kilometer wide planets like in Freelancer, where you can fly around it real fast. All right. Next, I want to talk a little bit about how Wingman Hangar and the current format changes they've done. I approve of pretty much everything they've done. They've shifted the entire format, and each episode is supposed to be focused around the in-studio segments, as we saw with the Foundry 42 report. So they're showing off a lot of inside the actual studios and what they're actually working on, which I think is something they should have been doing from day one. They kind of teased about it, and they'd show it like every 3 or 4 episodes before, but I don't know. You could tell they're putting a lot more effort into it. One of the things Wingman was quoted as saying was less fluff and more stuff, and I think everybody will agree that's a good thing. Well, maybe not everybody. But I mean, it's okay to toss a little bit of community involvement stuff in there, but I think that the game needs to be the focus of the show, rather than the community built up around it. One of the things they did in the last episode was did the hazy thoughts at the very end of it. I thought that was good too. Just it's fine if the fluff's in, just save it to the end. They also, with the form feedback questions, they appear to be discussing them rather than just giving short answers that Rob was famous for in previous episodes of Wingman's Hangar. He seems to actually be considering them and trying to create a dialogue with Wingman. And that shows personality and also shows his thought process. Before it was just like, no, no, yes, no. And that's not interesting or fun. Laser?
I like the changes with the set itself and the interactions between Wingman and, was it Rob? Jeez.
Yeah, that's actually a soundstage that's not too far from the actual new offices in Austin. They shoot it there. They don't have their own place because they tried to shoot it in their new office near their art pit, but the AC kept coming on and off, and they couldn't get the sound out. And that's where the first episode was, where they were all like droning for the summit. That episode, and the sound quality was really bad. You almost need a soundstage if you're gonna do recording like that.
At least there's only one episode. They fixed that pretty quick.
Next, we're going to talk a little bit about some developer comments. Go ahead,
We've
Boojum.
got some interesting dev comments. There's a whole lot to go through. Ever since the developer section of the forum was redesigned, we've had a lot more dev comments, even than we used to have, and there were a lot before. So everyone, I would encourage you to check those out for yourself. There's a few highlights that I thought we should talk about. First, there's a couple from Travis Day talking about the dogfighting module, reemphasizing that in the first drop of the dogfighting module, everyone is going to have a ship to fly. If you don't own a ship, that is one of the few that will be available in the first version of the dogfighting module. They're going to just give you access to one. You're not going to be locked out until they get your ship done. And the Scythe is going to make its first appearance in the first dogfighting module as AI opponents. So I think Scythe pilots will have to wait, but we're definitely going to be seeing the ship in the first version of the dogfighting module. Chris Roberts also made some comments on it in the 8th episode of his 10 for the Chairman bit. The Hornet is definitely going to be in the first iteration of the dogfighting module. The Aurora probably will be. The 300i will hopefully be done by then, and then other ships will follow. They're focusing on single-seat fighters first, and then moving on to multi-crew and larger ships later.
Go ahead, Bill.
This was what someone before had brought this up, I think on the cast actually, that, having the AI as the Scythes and then the players in Hornets is actually going to be very good for the game, because it's going to allow them to nail down the Hornet versus Scythe play, and even the AI for the Scythe play versus the Hornets.
Yeah, I mean, they could tune it day to day by adjusting the AI parameters. Although, one could say that the people coming into the actual Squadron 42 later on might be at a serious disadvantage, because the people who play in the dogfighting alpha are probably going to get pretty good at the game. And they're going to have to find that matching, the ability to match the players, but maybe adjust to the skill level. I don't know. It's going to be tough if you really think about it, because they're going to have a lot of time to sit there and play against players, and the players are going to get really good at the game.
They have certainly a lot of knobs to tweak and a lot of variables to juggle. We'll see how that goes. But hey, this is what the alpha and the beta are for. We're here to help them tweak knobs and tell them what is and isn't working. So we got a long time to work on this, and I don't expect the first version to be polished at all. It's going to be fun, I think, but I'm not even going to be surprised if it crashes.
It's going to be awful. Everything's going to be broken. You're not going to be able to log on. The first stages will be broken. Kind of like the Hangar module for a lot of people, actually, as I remember. Most people couldn't even register on that website for something like 5 or 6 hours for a lot of people.
And they're definitely, I think, ramping up to more in advance, know that they're going to be hammered day one. But at some point, I don't know if they even should be able to handle the kind of traffic they get in the first hour, if that's not going to be their sustained traffic. I mean, you should only throw so many resources at a one-time peak that's never going to happen again.
Yeah, that's a bad piece of resources. Of course, the way they have their infrastructure set up, they can add servers as they need to, which is what they did with the Hangar. Eventually, they got all the servers they need online, and then later on, they could ramp it down so they're not, burning money at extraordinary rates.
So anyway, we're still waiting for PAX to come, PAX East, the release of the dogfighting module in a demo, not the release so you can download it, is going to be at an event the day before PAX East, so I presume that means April 10th. And it's going to be a lot like the Hangar module demo that we had at Cologne, Germany with the Gamescom convention. So hopefully, not too long after PAX East, we'll be able to try it out for ourselves. There have also been some good dev comments from Blake Yates about exploration and the information system. He goes by Restitutor Orbis, I think that's right. The first time I wanted to talk about from his was a really amusing quote that we're going to include in the show notes about how the exploration might be able to involve lots and lots of people. It's full of references to Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade and Blade Runner. I'm a real fan of it. But the main meat of the idea is that sure, maybe only one guy finds the Holy Grail, but you can have thousands of people involved in the search, finding clues, eliminating avenues, and then besides just finding fancy objects, there's also going to be consistent need for up-to-date information about where the Vanduul are or what's going on in various places. So it's not going to be just discovering systems. I don't think they'll be able to make that a core mechanic. Finding a new star system is going to be rare just because the systems themselves are very limited.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can't just have it based around that one mechanic. There's no way to make it like a viable career choice. You couldn't make enough money. No, I suspect that explorers are going to side deal in a lot of information gathering and pandering. So, yeah, information seems to be a big thing for the focus of a lot of different things, actually.
In line with this comment that he's made about lots of people collaborating on finding pertinent information and providing to other people, he had a dev comment that was explaining how not everything that players find is going to be automatically public knowledge. His exact quote was, "The only things that will be common knowledge will be unclassified things that have been observed by or reported to the UEE network." Now, how exactly that works is going to still be nailed down, but that means that if you find something and you don't tell anyone about it, you're the only guy who knows, and information actually has value. You could probably trade that to players or maybe even to NPC organizations. So we'll see how that goes, but I think they have a very interesting mechanic going with who knows what.
Yeah, it'll be a world or a galaxy of people who know and people who don't know. And you could totally make a living just by info brokering. I think that's a really cool way to do things. I can't really recall too many games that, once information about something it gets published instantly everywhere and everybody automatically knows within a couple hours of it.
They might even have ways of restricting this in-game because some types of information can have an in-game representation that can't be translated into something you can shift around the internet. For instance, jump point data to get through a given jump point safely. It's not going to be, I don't think, anything you can write down on a notepad and have someone else punch in. It's going to be an in-game information item of some sort that can't be taken outside of the game and then spread to everyone and put back in. It have to spread through the game through in-game channels. So they have some interesting options here for making this a compelling game mechanic instead of just metagaming.
Either way, I'm very excited about all of that, and I really like Blake's the way he writes and gives information. He tells us a lot of stuff we don't know just through explaining systems that he's actually kind of familiar with. There's also another designer that does that, Pete McKay, who he goes by Hollow Kitten on there, and he does a very similar way of writing. Like he explains things in a lot of detail, kind of similar to how Chris does.
So there's quite a few dev comments, as I've mentioned. There's a wealth of them. I just wanted to bring a few highlights in the time that we have. We've got a lot more to talk about in times to come, but we are out of the interesting things that we had planned to bring you this episode.
Thank you for joining us for this Concast, and we will see you in the verse.